Hello, fourth graders. This is Mr. A, and we are reviewing the skill of comparing fractions. When we're comparing fractions, we want to see which amount of fractions is bigger, okay? And there are different ways we can examine fractions of different sizes and different amounts. First, we have to remember that fractions are all part of a whole that got split, that got broken into pieces. The denominator tells us the size of or how much the whole was split into, and the numerator tells us how many of those pieces are available. Okay? So let's say we are going to compare some fourths to halves. Okay, so I'm going to copy some of my fraction strips and put them here. Okay, and basically, we want to compare. All right, so let's see here. We want to compare 3/4, and we want to see it if it's uh, bigger than or smaller than or equal to a half. Okay, so first thing we have to notice, fourth graders, is that these fractions are of different sizes. The 3/4 is a whole, belongs to a whole that was split into four parts, while the 1/2 belongs to a whole that is split into two parts. So let's model both of them, model both of these fractions to find out which amount is bigger. So I'm going to start with 3/4. So 3/4 belongs to a whole, and that whole was complete. Then it got split into four parts. So I'm going to start with half, and then I'm going to partition it into fourths. Okay. Now, the whole had 4/4 because 4/4 makes a complete whole. However, our fraction only has three available. So 1, 2, 3, and the fourth one got lost. It's missing now. Okay. Now, this is 3/4. And actually, I'm going to write on the other side, this is 3/4. Now I'm going to draw a second hole of the same size as the other one. This one is 1/2. So it's a hole that got split into two, but only there is 1/2 and the other half is missing. It's lost. So we have 3/4, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. We can see in our model that 3/4 is more than 1/2. Okay, so um, if we use our models here, so we have 1/2 and three pieces of fourths. Yeah, 3/4 is bigger than 1/2. Okay, so um, the answer would be that 3/4 is bigger than 1/2. And we can actually use equivalent fractions to figure which fraction is bigger or not. So for example, 4 and 2 are related to one another. In fact, 2, if we multiply it by 2, we can turn it into fourths. So if we multiply 1/2 by 2 over 2, 1/2 is the same amount as 2/4. So if we look at 3/4 and 2/4, which is the same as half, right? We see that 3/4 has more pieces than 2/4, which is the same as half. Okay, so when we're comparing fractions, we can use a model, we can use um, equivalent fractions to see which fraction is bigger or not. Okay, um, let's say we have 3/2 and 4/5. Okay. Now, these two fractions again are split differently. This fraction belongs to a whole that is split into halves or two parts, and this fraction belongs to a whole that is split into fifths. So if I was to draw my whole here, so I'm gonna do my whole for three halves. So we start from 0, and here is 1. It's split into 2, okay? Now I'm going to draw a second whole, and this one, I'm going to partition it into fifths. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just from the graph, from the model, you can see that halves is thicker and wider than a fifth, right? And if we uh, uh, just use this diagram, this is thicker amount, and this is thinner amount, right? And then here's the other part that we have to look at. 3/2, that means 3 pieces of half. So a half plus a half, that makes a whole, okay? This makes a whole. And that means 3/2 is more than a whole because we need a third piece to make 3/2. However, 4/5 is less than a whole because you would need 5/5 to make a whole, but we only have 4 pieces are available. So this is another way we can compare fractions. We can compare them by using the benchmark of a whole, right, of 1. Anytime we have amount that is the same, that has the same numerator and denominator, that means it has all the pieces. That means it's a whole. If we have the numerator is bigger than the denominator, that means we have more than a whole. Okay, so 7/6, that is more than a whole because you would need 6/6 to make a whole. If you have 5/3, that is bigger than a whole because you need only 3 parts out of 3 to make a whole. So in this lesson, we talked about how to compare fractions. We can compare fractions using benchmarks of a whole or a benchmark of half, right? The benchmark of half. So we can use benchmarks to compare fractions. We can use models like we did uh, earlier, right? And just think about the denominator, think about the numerator, and then use those methods that we talked about in this video to compare different fractions.